Rye is the owner of the secret Noble Knight Discord, so all of this is just misdirection. They
It's
already
all
have this planned
misdirection.
out. What's up, everybody? Circus here, coming at you with this week's Rye Report. I'm pretty excited about this one because we got new decks. We got a big shakeup in the meta. We got Rye here because he likes to shake it. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, YouTube. Hello, Circus. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Right now we're watching King of the Hill. It's a little new addition to the channel that we do after all of our tournaments. I hang out and we play King of the Hill. So if you want to check that out, come check us out on Twitch. And don't forget, Rye, you should
Yep.
subscribe if you're not already, because only half the people that watch these videos are subscribed. So make sure to do that.
Ooh, those half probably haven't even won a King of the Hill game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Terrible,
see, I
terrible.
heard when you subscribe, your win streak goes up by like 2.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
actually pretty good in King of the Hill. All right, so we'll get right to it. T.G.s, what's up?
Yep, T.G.s, the last bastion of hope for the new box. Rikka's, it ain't Chief. Whoops. They accidentally made Arrow Mage 2.0, but forgot to give us, the actual Arrow, the best cards of it. So
The parts that make it work.
yeah, so you won't be seeing Arrow Mage in competitive. At this point, I don't even know if you're going to see Arrow Mage in ranked. It's really bad.
Rikka Arrow
Or
Mage
yeah,
or
or
Rikka.
Rika Arrow
It's
Mage.
the same
Whatever.
thing. It's the same girls, right?
Yeah, you can combo with Sylvans, you can combo with Arrow Mage, you can play pure. No matter what version you're playing, I have not seen a successful version. They all brick, they all pass turn 1 and lose almost every single time.
Well,
So
even their optimal turn 1 board is not that good.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, you bring out the rank 6, and then it's like, oh, now what?
Well, even if you just get, what is it, the Sun Drop or the Snow Drop or whatever, that one
Yeah.
out, and then you get the Tatiana or whatever,
And
that's your
then one
best board.
blue-eyed white dragon comes out and annihilates your whole world, and you're like, huh.
Yeah, only, what is it, 2,800 attack and a negate? I mean, that's all you got, so.
That deck still needs more support. If we get more support, we'll see with them. So TGs were kind of the last bastion of hope, and they performed pretty well. The first day that they were available, there was Battle Step, $130 tournament ended up being. And that ended up being pretty good for them. 2 of them made to the top 4, ended up mirroring, and then got to the finals where they got dominated by this new kind of turbo Blue Eyes that's been going around, which in my opinion is the best way to play Blue Eyes White Dragon right now. And then second day they did okay-ish, but ultimately didn't end up topping. So it's still kind of a toss-up in the air how competitively viable they'll be, but there is still promise. The only problem with them that I see so far is they're kind of linear. They're linear in the same way that Noble Knights were linear, you know what I mean? Where they would, they can do a lot of things, but there's really only one combo that's actually top tier, and the others are just kind of like, why would I ever do that when I could just do this? You know what I mean?
Right, you just have the one play. Yeah,
pretty much. So they making their halberd cannon turn 1 against pretty much any deck. It negates an inherent summon, so anything that doesn't start a chain link, it can negate essentially, but it doesn't have the roach restriction of having to be a level 5 or special summon. It can negate normal summons as well. So that's a very powerful effect.
So
being able
Book
to
of
negate
Moon on
alter.
the rise, then, right?
Book of Moon on the rise, yes, but I mean, it like every single new box that comes out, Book of Moon gets better and better.
You want to
and better.
explain why? Because you were just talking about the summoning, and then you get the negate, and that's what made me think of Book of Moon. You want to explain why that becomes so important?
Yeah, so Book of Moon, obviously putting a monster face down defense position means they can't activate their effect because they're no longer face up on the field. So if your opponent goes first and turbos out a halberd cannon, before you normal summon your monster, if you Book of Moon them, you can actually do your combos. If you don't, you obviously you're going to get your effect negated, and getting your summon negated, means you don't get the effect either of the monster. So it's in certain cases, like let's say you play Cyber Dragon Core, not only did you lose Cyber Dragon Core, and you lose the effect of adding a card from the deck to your hand. So it's very critical that you stop that halberd cannon from activating. And yes, you can play something like Forbidden Chalice, but Book of Moon is more flexible. And if you're playing Forbidden Chalice, you're only going to be trying to negate an effect, where Book of Moon can be used for the defense, and in addition to that, you can also use it offensively to stop a halberd cannon or any monster effect that you want to stop. Essentially, that's floodgating your board.
What's the barrier to entry here? Is this a really expensive deck? I see 3 miscellaneous Saurus. Is that the best way to play it? I mean, are we going to see this all over the ladder? Is this going to be like
No.
all over the
No.
place? Or
This deck is shaping up to be one of the most expensive decks. If this is the way that ends up being played. Again, this is, I think we have 2 days of data. 2 days of data going into this, and very few tournaments. And even then, within those tournaments, very few play rate. Not many people are actually playing the deck. 3 Myskosaurus. You have to go get the Light Sworns. You have to go get the new box. You have to get the 3 of the Screw Serpents. And you have to have Book of Moon. If you don't have Book of Moon, you could play Forbidden Chalice, I suppose, but it's just not as good. And of course, Forbidden Lance as well. So it's an expensive deck. And not to mention that the boxes that they're in. I mean, if you have Myskosaurus, that means you went for DDDs. And if you went for DDDs, then you're probably like me and an idiot, because it's not a very good deck. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't a good investment whatsoever. But I have
that was
Myskosaurus,
Rye
so.
saying that. That was not Circus. Circus has no problem with the DDD community. I do not need DMs from the secret DDD Discord.
I love DDDs, but they were a waste of money. They're not good. They got me like 2 King of Games, and then I was like, wait a second. I could just play Vendrids and be better off.
Right. so
So
is this going to be a good long-term deck? That's what I'm worried about, or not worried about, but thinking about, because like obviously it's a new deck. It made it to the
I don't think
finals in
so.
its first tournament. People are having success with it on streams. Are we getting hyped, or is the hype real?
I think it's a good deck. I think ultimately it will end up on the power rankings. I don't think it'll be super up there because it does die heavily to Necro Valley, for example. It can die heavily to Abyss Dweller. It can die heavily to just common side deck cards that we're going to see. It even dies to, for example, the Steel Swarm Roach that has had no effect on the meta so far. This deck actually gets pretty hard countered by it. So if an Automat, goes first, makes the Roach and a Bowser, I just don't see them playing around that. That being said, it does have a lot of tech space, so it can play. It's not linear with Noble Knight. You know how like Noble Knights couldn't really side at all. They get side trap cards, and that's it because of balance. They don't really have that restriction, and it's a very consistent deck, so they can side outs, Cosmic Cyclone, MST, whatever it is that they need to play. The biggest reason I don't think it's worth investing in, though, unless you just want to get immediate tournament success, is it's very skill reliant.
I was about to say, without the skill, this deck is nothing, right? I mean, if they nerf the skill in any way,
it literally doesn't work, because the big boss monster, the one that's the biggest threat, he requires 3 synchros, and we only have 3 monster zones. So once you make your 2 synchros, how the hell are you going to make your 3rd synchro?
Right.
You literally can't, unless you do like a revive from grave play or something like that, which is just super convoluted. In order to make the deck work, you need the skill, and skills are always like the first thing that get nerfed in Duel Links. Even if they're not even necessarily that overpowered, they're always, before cards get hit, it's usually a skill that gets hit. So it's very, very vulnerable to a nerf. They really don't, they don't care what you invested, because they're not hitting the cards in their mind, they're just hitting the skill. So I would wait and see. Unless the deck becomes like the best deck of the format, I wouldn't personally invest in it. I think you're better off investing in other decks right now.
All right, you mentioned Turbo Blue Eyes. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Turbo Blue Eyes.
What's the difference here? Why are you saying it's so much better than the previous versions?
So I think a big factor, well, actually the biggest factor of Blue Eyes kind of coming back is no more Ally of Justice Quarantine, right? Desperado's dead. I mean, there's a lot of, some people tried to like, yeah, I can still, play. No, you can't.
Need your coin flips. Let's be honest.
It's the whole reason Desperado was so broken is because the skill was so broken on his own. Desperado doesn't do anything. he has to be, teched in with something. Even back in the day, Cyberdark Desperado was good for like a single format until people figured out Master of Destiny was good, and then the Cyberdark version just didn't work
Right,
anymore.
right.
I know because I tried playing it in Clan Wars and I got absolutely trashed. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try that anymore. So even back in the day, the Cyberdark version wasn't the best. It was always Master
Right.
of Destiny. It just wasn't optimized at that point yet.
Well, with everything so semi-limited now, the
Yeah,
deck just the stuff that made it good, you just can't play all of it. You have to
pretty much.
choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ally of Justice Quarantine on his own isn't like a good enough floodgate, right? Like a
Right.
Lightning Imprisoning Mirror is better because you have to out with Cosmic or something. But
It's a total
uh,
package, and like the
yeah,
single parts can't stand on their
yeah,
own. They all have to work
no, yeah.
together. Yeah.
It just doesn't work. You'll just get Book of Moon and lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to you eat up your normal summon to bring out a really weak monster that's vulnerable to everything in the game. So it's just not a good pick on its own. A lot of people are freaking out that he wasn't hit on the ban list or whatever, but it's really not a big deal. You don't see him anymore, essentially. So that's like the biggest thing that happened. The second biggest thing is everything in the game now is, for the most part, affected by card destruction. The two top decks of the previous format, Desperado and Noble Knights, both didn't really care about destruction, right? Desperado, if you did destruction effects on them, either Desperado is going to summon from the hand or there's going to super team their destroyed monsters, and they really don't care. Noble Knights, Noble Arm of Destiny, especially if they have Glory Chained, you just wasted all that resource to try and pop monsters. So Karma Cut was just so much more effective in as being like kind of the go-to trap to get rid of these hard to get rid of monsters, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want Noble Knights endlessly floating.
Right.
And it's and the only other thing was like Ritual Beast, but Ritual Beast is dying and it's pretty much dead right now.
Don't
really
say that. Now we're getting messages from the Ritual Beast Discord. Man,
all the
I told
Discords
you
are
to be
gonna hate
not
us.
non-controversial today, but here we go.
Non-controversial. Now, especially Ritual Beast is going to have a rough time with Blue Eyes being, in my opinion, probably the best deck of the format. Unless we see some heavy stall deck come through, this version of Blue Eyes is insane. So they took away Karma Cuts. Like I said, you don't need them anymore. And they're playing Treacherous Trap Hole, the card everybody loves to hate.
Yep.
It's good again. It's a really good card again.
It's always been a good card.
It's always been a good card, unless there's heavy anti-destruction,
Right.
which is why like with Desperado and Noble Knight gone, there's no more heavy destruction. So they you can play TTH again, and you're totally fine. Waters absolutely destroys Waters, destroys T.G.s, destroys even Blue Eyes. It's really, really good to bring back TTH, and then you can just side deck it if you don't necessarily need it, which Blue Eyes do. They go into Hollowed Life Barrier, which is a really good card.
Like we see on the screen right now, we see Abyss Dweller and Spider Shark.
Yeah.
That TTH, bam, right?
Boom, everything gone.
Yeah, it has they have no defense to it. Yeah.
And you're playing 3-carded consonants, so the chances of you drawing, if you're playing 2 TTH, the chances of you drawing that is extremely high. Like a lot of people in chat, every time TTH was flipped, they're like, "Oh my god, he's so lucky. He's so lucky." And I'm like, he drew 6 cards.
Right.
That's not luck. That's consistency. That's
right.
kind of how the deck works.
It's gonna get in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's when you have draw power, that's why Karakuri was so powerful, right? When not like most recent Karakuri, original Karakuri, what made it so strong is you put in random tech cards like TTH and True Nade, and then you drew them because you drew a bunch of cards.
Right.
So that's kind of the same thing here. Big differences, no Spirit Dragon as well, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Why waste a Brig spot on a monster that comes out, banishes 1, and then is totally useless after that?
Right,
why not instead? Instead during your turn, you have Vermilion Dragon Mech and you have the Heliopolis Exceed monster. So if you really need to get rid of back row, you just make those 2 monsters an OTK on your turn instead of wait for the end phase, summon a useless monster to banish 1, and then he does nothing after that.
Right.
So it makes sense why, like Spirit Dragon, you don't need him. You don't lose to back row that hard enough to warrant Spirit Dragon constantly coming back. The only time Spirit Dragon's useful is when you can keep recycling him with Azure Eyes and getting multiple back row banishes against like a huge stall deck. Other than that, it's just always going to be more worthwhile to, play your card of consonances, don't brick, play your Heliopolis, and then you just pop monsters like crazy. Anyone that's playing the turbo deck, you see them draw so many cards, and they have cards like Ancient Rules again in the main deck, so that when they draw the Blue Eyes White Dragons, they have a way to summon them very, very easily. And then on top of all that, probably the big reason Turbo Blue Eyes is the way to go is their biggest counter, the Abyss Dweller. We were always talking about how Abyss Dweller turns off the stones in the graveyard. Well, this version, since it's drawing so much and it plays the White Stone of Legend to, you're essentially drawing 3 when you card a Consonance that. This version, the whole idea is to get as many Blue Eyes in your hand as possible to then activate Ultimate Dragons. And then the Abyss Dweller kind of just is like, okay, you can negate the stones in the grave. All my Blue Eyes are in my hand. Yeah. They're all in my hand. I can't summon them anyway. So they become more tools to bring back Blue Eyes to your hand, so you can use them for discard, so you can use them, for whatever you need. And yeah, after that, it's pretty much the same Blue Eye strategy, just a lot faster, and blitzing these decks that, are trying to set up. And the only one that really has a chance to stop it would be something like Automats. And like I said, Automats, you literally just side Hollow Life Barrier. You play Hollow Life Barrier to protect your monsters as well, so they don't get destroyed. And then, yeah, Automats just fold to getting that. They can't OTK, so they just lose.
All right, so Automats, since you brought them up, they were #1 in the power rankings this past week. How are they going to be doing? We have them at tier 1 along with the water deck. Are these 2 decks going to continue to be at the top here? We'll start with Automats.
I think Automats might drop a place. It depends. A lot of people play it. It's a very popular deck. It's actually an anime deck, so that's probably why.
Oh, okay.
It may stay tier 1 just because of how many people are playing it and getting to top 8. But there is, in my opinion, a clear difference between Blue Eyes and Automats right now. It's unless the Blue Eyes bricks, usually Automats, they just don't really win against this new version of Blue Eyes.
They can't. They can't play through and OTK them if they go second.
They can't because they just call it Hollow Life Barrier.
Okay.
So you can't do anything against that. You got bolt that, they chain to it, or whatever the case may be. As if they cannot OTK and then it goes over to Blue Eyes always comes back and OTKs them.
Okay.
And I mean, I guess Automats can start playing Hollow Life Barrier, but then you get into the position of, well, if you play too many techs, your Automata play skill has a higher chance of bricking, which is the whole point of the deck. So, and every single time I've seen those 2 decks kind of go at each other, it always just seems super Blue Eyes favored. Like the first game sometimes can be Automat favored, but then it's always after those Hollow Life Barriers come in, that's it. It's over. It's just kind of been the story every single time.
Hollow Life Barrier, that's that card where people are like, did this man just play a Hollow Life Barrier? But now, yeah, it's serious. It's for reals.
I mean, if you literally go first and your hand is broken and you open that Hollow Life, you don't have to do anything. You set Hollow Life, they go, before they do anything, flip it up, drop your Stone of the Ancients, and that's it. They do all their plays. You summon a Blue Eyes at the end of your turn, and then you destroy them next turn. Like, what's Bowser gonna do to a 3K beater? I don't have an effect. Go ahead, negate me.
Right. So Automats maybe not so good in this format, or not as good.
They're still gonna be good. They're either gonna be tier 2 or like. I don't think they'll be #1 in power rankings, I should say. I think is the proper way to put it.
Well, power rankings was a tie between Water and Automat. So the 2 XZ's decks, both of them are their success kind of tied to each other because they're kind of similar.
A little bit. The Water deck is just more of like your benchmark deck of the format, I feel, because it's the deck that just plays all the back row. That's the whole identity of the deck. You turbo out monsters, and then you have a bunch of back row to support it.
Well, everybody's saying it's the Shiranui of the format, right?
Yeah, basically, it's just the benchmark of where you're at. So I don't think Waters. It's just one of those decks where it's like, it's just bland. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the deck of the format. Whenever I think of this format, I think of the Water deck, and it's just the benchmark. It's not the greatest. It's not the worst. It's just pretty good.
Right, and it still hasn't beaten or won the power rankings yet. It hasn't really like just dominated a week. No.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. They're just kind of there, which is fine. That's how a deck should be. In reality, it should just be perfect in the middle. Can win a tournament, but it's not dominating the tournament. So I think that's good.
All right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Anything else been going on lately? I feel like we're missing one. Fire Kings. That's what we wanted to talk about. Fire Kings. Oh,
yeah,
right?
Fire Kings. Yeah, Fire Kings, we talked, I think -1 talked a little bit about them having some
Mm-hmm.
representation, which might be Dunzo because of Blue Eyes. Blue Eyes being able to negate graveyard effects, kind of
hmm
unfortunate. But Fire King's being able to negate monster effects in return, it might be it's one of those decks where you have to keep an eye on, especially also against T.G.s as well. They're all monster effects. So them losing their board could be really, really critical to that deck. So it's just a deck just to keep an eye on. It hasn't really put up results yet or anything. But it's just one of those decks I'm constantly keeping my eye on because I'm like, okay, I know you can pop off. When is it going to happen?
Well, they don't do very well blending the archetype. Like you can't really bring stuff in from the
Nah,
outside.
you can't. It's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. It's everything just works together in Fire Kings.
hmm
Um, and then it does. It also doesn't help that the card that Battling Boxer Veil that they're playing is really, really bad against TGs because it's kind of like with Golden Apples. You take the life points, then you recover it, right? But if you take 4,000,
Game's over.
right off,
Yeah.
yeah. So when they're turboing a halberd cannon,
Yeah.
um, it's kind of hard to do anything against that. So it'll be interesting. I just want to keep an eye on Fire Kings. We didn't talk about Noble Knights, I guess, with the balance changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Where are we at with that?
it's if they open up their Merlin and their equip, you'll feel no difference. It still feels like Noble Knights. If they don't, it feels like a way worse deck than it ever was. And the second option happens a lot more often.
Oh, I'm sure. Right. Yeah.
So it's still probably pretty much where it was last power ranking, where it might be number 5 or number 3. It just depends on the week and how many people entered with
Depends
it
on
and how
their
many.
opening hand.
Yeah, it's like going to the lottery. How many times did I go first today?
So
So
I'm guessing there's people trying to figure this out because I bet there's some Noble Knight enthusiasts that do not want to lose this deck. They'll figure out a skill. They'll figure out some deck list, right?
I don't think. Yeah, I mean, people are trying, but I don't think they will because the problem with Noble Knights is you have to talk about like the concept of a core, right?
hmm
So to use an old deck, or I guess even a more recent deck, in Waters, right? The Water core is so tight because or not so tight, but so loose rather, because you've got like Deep Sea Diva who can search all these cards. So as long as you open up your Deep Sea Diva, you're good, and then your skill can fill in the gaps, so they don't have to be the proper levels. You know what I mean?
Right.
Same thing with like old Shiranui, where it was like 8 cards of the core, and then everything else is text space. For each Noble Knight monster, you need an equip card for them to even have an effect. So I was going over it with chat the other day. The core of Noble Knight is 3 Merlin, you have to play it. 3 Madrat, you have to play it. At least 2 boars, so you don't brick with it. I'm not even going with 3 boars, which is what you should do, but 2 boars, 1 Driston, at least 2 traps, and then at least 1 Destiny, 1 Arf, 1 Gallatin, 1 Caliburn, so you can actually OTK people. And that's not even the proper number that you're supposed to play.
Right.
That core is way too massive to not play a skill that somehow benefits your consistency.
Right.
It's just too much. You know what I mean? And there's currently no consistency skill that's
They can use.
yeah. So the tier 1 Noble Knight is not coming back. I'm sorry, it's just not gonna come back. YouTube. I'm sorry to say, but there is a card, Heritage of the Chalice, that can come out. Probably going to be a UR to make the deck more expensive. That would basically make them stronger than when balance was a thing. And that's probably what's going to happen sometime later down the road whenever they want to bring the deck back. Because that's like what we're pretty much missing. That's the consistency part of the deck is what we're missing. We're basically playing Dark Lords before Dark Lords got banishment right now.
Okay.
And
Now,
that's not going to work.
YouTube, please remember, Rye is the owner of the secret Noble Knight Discord, so all of this is just misdirection. They
It's
already
all
have this planned
misdirection.
out. They're going to be
Yeah.
storming back next week, I have a feeling. I feel like this was all just smoke and mirrors. So
There'll be a nice little rogue deck, maybe tier 3, but beyond that, the overpowering tier 1 that it's like, oh, there's Merlin, guess I'm gonna scoop it up. See you next game. That's not happening anymore.
all right, one last deck then, Thunder Dragons. We saw it a lot in King of the Hill. It's really good in this best of one
Dragons.
format.
Yeah.
How's it doing in tournaments?
Thunder Dragons always does well until Necro Valley shows up, and then they're like,
Dope.
"Fuck, now what do I do?" Um, it's yeah, it's a good deck. I honestly think it's a really really good deck. I just think that people get unlucky with bricks, and there are just other decks. It's not even an inconsistent deck. It's just there's other decks that are more consistent right
Hmm.
now. So if we were to get like a stronger ban list, that deck would definitely become one of the top performers. I think it was it tier 1 or tier 2 last week? I think
Oh,
2 weeks ago it was tier 1.
yeah, it
I
was
don't
right
remember.
up there. Yeah.
It was up there, yeah. So
I don't remember yesterday,
absolutely,
Rye.
it's a
Don't ask me 2 weeks
yeah,
ago.
it's absolutely it's a good deck. Um, you know, I can see it. It still wins tournaments here and there.
Right.
It's just yeah, whenever it has to go up again, so many things counter it, and they're so common in the meta game. Like whenever you talk about side deck, whenever you have, for example, like waters are really lucky because they people have to take a specific card DNA transplant to counter them in the side deck. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's not just, oh hey, yeah, I cited Lancia to counter, Ritual Beast. Oh hey, look at that. I happen to counter Thunder Dragons too. So there you go. I'll throw
Right.
that in there. You know what I mean? Like it just sucks because there's so many cards like that that counter
Right.
Thunder Dragon, Chaos Hunter, Lancia, Necro Valley. Even the Light Imprisoning, Shadow Imprisoning mirrors can be annoying for them to deal with sometimes. So that's kind of where they lose. It's just that side deck. They're really, really bad. But like you said, in single format, they're like one of the best decks in the game. So
Right.
still a good deck.
All right, guys. I hope this helped you understand what's going on in the meta. It's still in flux, I feel. I still feel like we're
Yeah,
a good
like
week or
all
two
this
away.
could totally change. Because I didn't even realize there was a Turbo Blue Eyes deck until literally yesterday.
Right.
Like I thought it was like I kind of had the like kind of like some because like the unlimited tournament happened and Blue Eyes won. So I was like, is there something there, or is this just a meme tournament that I shouldn't look into?
Right.
And then they won again with Turbo, and I was like, wait. And then they won again with Turbo, and I'm like, wait, hold on, this is actually something.
Yeah, we got to look into this. So,
So
yeah, I always love these times in the meta because we see a lot of rogue decks, we see new ideas, stuff, bubbles up, and then we kind of get locked into a meta for the next couple of months. So, like the first
yeah,
month of a new meta is always awesome. So,
yeah,
we'll have to wait and see what happens. So, we're going to get out of here, but you should get in the Discord because it's free. The tournaments
true.
are free, the new
Hmm.
player help is free, and
Hmm.
we'd love to see you in there. You can check out Ride just about every day except Thursday for some reason. He takes that day off. That's his day of rest.
That's my day of
You
rest.
can see him over on Twitch doing all of our battle phase events. And then you'll see me doing the after parties, doing some King of the Hill. So make sure to check that out. So we're going to get out of here. I'm Circus. That's Rye.
Bye, YouTube. See you later.
All right, we'll see you next time.